I'm here in Belgium, in Oudenaarde, for the start and the finish of the Ron van Vlaanderen, and I'm having a wee tipple of the local beer. What else could spoil a day like today? Carlton Kirby. I'm joined by Carlton Kirby. I was going to say CK, but then you would think underpants and smelly things, well, both of them go together. So the second Wordsmith podcast is in fact with the screamer, as Andrew Greipel calls Carlton Kirby.
Hello.
So I'm going to be spending a bit of time with Carlton. We might finish this podcast here in Oudenaarde. Not too sure how many beers we're going to have, but we might take you out for dinner, we might see you tomorrow, but...
This is only the first.
Yes.
It's amazing. Trappist Blonde, by the way, 9.8%.
So, just to crack on, because I'm sure you all want to know, what is the man, the legend, the icon, Carlton Kirby?
Ah,
so, I'm going to take you back. Yeah, I'm going to take you back.
You're going.
Right, I've been commentating with Carlton for many years. I've been involved with Eurosport for, 20 years now, and you're a little bit longer. And if you have followed Carlton Kirby over the last 20 years, God help you, right? If you followed him and listened to his commentary, you put snippets of his life together, right? If they made a book about, I know he's got a few books out, if they made a book, it would never be finished, because his life just continues and continues. I'm not going to come out, Carlton, with this red book and say this is your life, but
More or less.
where did it start, your life?
Oh my God! Well, actually,
Derbyshire?
I was born. Yeah, I was born on the Derbyshire borders in Sheffield, and my dad, he was the first hairdresser in Sheffield. I know.
A nice centre pattern you've got.
Yeah, so my dad moved up from, he's originally from Liverpool, and but the family moved up from London, where he was working in Knightsbridge as basic Mr. Teasy Weezy. He was hairdresser to the stars with Andrew Bernard in a salon just behind Harrods. And they opened a salon in Sheffield in the 1960s because it was an extremely rich part of the world, still is actually. This constituency of Hallam, I think, is in the top 10 wealthiest constituencies in all of the United Kingdom. That's because all the steel barons lived there, and of course they all, in the 60s in particular, they were still buying Rolls Royces and all that kind of stuff, and there were no ladies hairdressers. So my dad opened up a hairdressing salon, having been trained in London, cut the hair of the stars, Nanette Newman, Paul Newman's wife, and various other people. Gene Shrimpton, all those, the Shrimp, took coffee. Gene Shrimp.
Maybe some younger people listening to this, but they don't know.
Long time ago, but the time of the Rolling Stones and the Beatles when they first started, maybe you've heard of those kids.
In the 60s.
Anyway, so we moved up to Sheffield, and they asked, where's the best place to buy a house? And that was in Fulwood, part of the Hallam constituency, and our neighbours were Michael Palin from Monty Python, Mr. Clarkson, Jeremy Clarkson, lived very,
he's
very
anti-cyclist, isn't he?
well, yeah.
He's a motorhead.
I think he secretly quite likes it, but anyway, yeah. I went to school there, just state school, a bit like me and Brian, two state boys, but it was tapped at comprehensive, and because of where it was, our head boy was Sebastian Coe, of the International
Oh, you're dropping some
Athletics
names now.
Association, and our school band at Tapton School was Def Leppard. I know. And I'll never forget, they came in to the sixth form with an EP, a red EP, and said, does anyone want to buy this? We've just done 100 copies, 4 tracks. And we're like, no, we're all punks, piss off. So that was it.
You got to remember they call me Techno Brian, or some people do.
Well,
so, do
that's
you know
true.
any techno groups back then?
Oh gosh, Cabaret Voltaire. They were massive at the time. Dead Fingers Talk. I mean, Sheffield was a big old hub. Yeah. I mean, I remember we used to go and queue up down at either the Limit Club or Sheffield University to be signed in. And the bands that came out in the mid-70s, just when I was a sort of mid-teenager, really, born in 1961. So
see, I was born in '67, so Human League out coming in the '80s was.
Yeah, well, they were a local band, and then ABC, of course, and various other. I mean, it's been an amazing hub of music, Sheffield, without people realising it. Jarvis Cocker, Joe Cocker, in fact. Would you believe? This is great. Joe Cocker, the original Cocker.
I'm going to have a drink.
Yeah, please do. He was my dad Graham's business partner. My dad Graham, my dad's partner, was actually in Joe Cocker's band, and they were asked to go down to London and audition with Mickey Most. So the band went down to London, and Mickey Most was a very big record producer at the time, and they did a session. And at the end of the session, they said, "Thanks, lads. We'll be in touch. Joe, can we have a word?" And they never saw him again.
He made the most of it.
Yeah, he got taken, and of course then the band disbanded, and Graham concentrated on hairdressing with my dad. But yeah, so it was quite a little hub area. So that's where I grew up.
But there was no cycling orientation back then, by the sounds of things.
Well, I of course had a great cycling orientation. As you know, Brian, I was the founder, and indeed the original. I developed the original mountain bike.
Was that a mistake?
No, it's just by default.
Yes.
I had a paper round, but unfortunately my paper round, Mr. Seal gave me this round and he said, "You're helping me out a lot because I can't afford the repairs on my car. There's only 7 papers, and the average paper round back then for the Sheffield Star in the evening was about 70 to 100 papers, and I had 7 papers, but it was the Hill Farms, and so I had a Hercules Jeep which was destroyed after about a week. My dad then, of course, said, "Look, you're going to get yourself another bike." So he bought me a Carlton Corsa, of course. Unfortunately, he bought it in metallic violet. Anyway, it's a bit of a challenge. But anyway, this bike was ultimately started to get destroyed and was corrupted. But what I did was, the tyres were too thin for the terrain I was on. So I had some forks made, which you could do back then. You go down to a small workshop in Weir Head is where I went. I asked for advice actually from my dad's car mechanic. I said, "Where should I go to get some forks made, wider forks, so I can put wider wheels on this?" I was going to put motorcycle wheels on it because you couldn't buy knobbly bike wheels then at the time. And he said, "Really?" I said, "I'm sorry, really? You need to go to Weir." Turns out that meant Weir Head. Anyway, I worked it out. Got the forks done. Of course, with racing bars, it was ridiculous. So he just put me a straight bar on it, and a motorcycle wheels front and back, and that was it. I managed to survive. It was a very corrupted bike, but yeah. And I'd never seen a mountain bike, but I think I invented one.
Well, the bike was invented in Scotland in the Fries, right? So you're claiming that you invented, well, I can't remember, before my time. Right.
Probably a visitor, to be honest, to a Sheffield newsagent called Mr. Seals.
So you heard it here first. Carlton Kirby is claiming he invented the mountain bike. Right. Right. Before we crack on to talk a little bit about cycling and how you get involved with cycling, I said at the start of this podcast that we're here in Oudenaarde, but you brought me to this famous bar.
Yes, the Caribbean.
What's it famous about?
It's the Bar of Stars. It's right next to the church. We'll show you in a minute, I'm sure. So it's right next to the church, and in fact, I'll just show you now. Look. Check this out. So there's Brian. He'll give you a wave. Oops, sorry, ladies. There it is. Look at that. Absolutely sensational. There's the church, and there's the start line. They'll be rolling out there tomorrow. So yeah, it's the place to be. But you cannot get in here on race day because of security. There is one way of getting in, and that is,
tell them that you know Carlton Kirby.
If you're a cycling god, or if you're with a cycling god. And anyway, the first time I experienced this, I came here with Sean Kelly, and of course security was here. Everyone, they'd actually put fences around the place, but it's VIPs only. And of course I was looking a bit forlorn because Sean Kelly was waved straight through, and the bouncer sort of stood in front of me and went, "No, no, no." And I kind of looked at Sean, he looked back and he went, "It's okay, it's with me." And they said, "Well, who is he?" He said, "My security." So anyway, in I went with Sean. And as I was in there, it was amazing. Circa was in there. Le Monde was, of course, at the bar. We had some of the youngsters at the time, like the Yenzi. He was in there. In fact, Yenzi was getting the beers. And it was absolutely packed with the greats. And Sean Kelly comes up, and the Yenzi said, Sean, did you order a beer? And Sean said, of course I did, which was bollocks. And he gets given a beer. And at that point, Sean's like, turns around, winks at me, and I said, where's mine? He says, you'll have to sort yourself out. So anyway, I start queuing up for the bar. Eddie Merckx comes out of the toilet and starts looking around. And starts asking people, where's my beer? Where's my beer? He said to Yenzi, where's my beer? And Yenzi sort of looked over at Sean, and Sean went, don't say anything. He'd stolen Eddie's beer.
That's another, you've heard it here first, right? Right, Carlton.
Yes.
We've talked about a little bit your growing up in Derbyshire, talked about where we are. Right, but you never started in cycling, you started in radio. Did you tell me once that your dad said you've got a face for radio?
Well,
and he sent you out there?
I used to be a good looking lad, I've got to say. I had a girlfriend who became a supermodel actually, would you believe?
I was quasi-model once.
Jenny,
That's as far as I got.
Jenny Brunt, beautiful and a lovely person, I've got to say. How did I get? What was the question? How did I get into broadcasting?
You got into radio first, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Like cycling, like you never grew up like some people saying that I want to get involved with cycling, or I want to get. Cycling wasn't on your forefronts at the time.
No, the forefront of my mind was always radio. Would you believe? And in fact, even when I was a kid, I was part of the Under the Bedclothes Club for Radio Luxembourg 208. Listening on medium wave at night, because you could hear all the music, but in this sort of crackly medium wave beamed in from a massive transmitter in Luxembourg. Anyway, I always thought that would be a great career, and I always fancied it. So went down to Sheffield City Library at the age of 14, and they had all the yellow pages for the United States. So bizarrely, I don't know why, somebody must have donated it, or the post went wrong, I don't know. Ended up in Sheffield. So I thumbed through for Florida, and there was about 60 different radio stations in there, and I wrote to them all offering my services with basically a letter saying, proper letter with a stamp and everything, that English music was taking over quite clearly, and has been for quite some time. And surely somebody hosting an English music show at the weekends will be just the ticket. Never heard a thing, and then suddenly one day a little envelope popped through from a gentleman in Miami, and he said, "Dear Carlton, undoubtedly you one day will have a career in radio." He said, because right now there are probably on the planet about, at least in the United States, over 200,000 people who are presenting on radio throughout our nation alone. There's no reason why one day you shouldn't be that. And I always kept that in my mind, and always very much had a drive and a kind of belief that it would end up. And so it turned out to be. When I went to university, I joined the Radio Society. And when I left, I worked on business magazines, famously being sacked by Sir Michael Heseltine, Lord Heseltine, with the famous words, "Men of renown never wear brown." And I thought, what's he on about? And I was actually wearing a brown corduroy shirt with an amber cravat at the time. Anyway, glam rock had happened. I was, famous. Anyway, I still looked vaguely like Tony Hadley at the time. So I actually thought, I'm working in business magazines, which I was. I ended up at Middle East Money magazine, writing the back page, which was called How to Spend It. A title which has been stolen by the Financial Times Weekend magazine. So basically my job was to write the copy at the back for the rich and famous and how they could spend their money. I ended up going to some amazing places, but I was only like 23, 22, 23, and I was so bored. Honestly, I know it sounds ungrateful because I travelled all over the world. Writing these pieces for this very wealthy Saudi-owned magazine. And in the end, I thought, I always wanted to be in radio. Why have I ended up at this? So I rang up the NUJ, the National Union of Journalists, and this is so weird, but the head of the union happened to be walking past the phone when it rang and picked it up. So it's a bit like ringing the National Union of Mine Workers and Arthur Scargill answering the phone. So this guy picks the phone up, and I just laid my heart out. I said, look, this is what I've always wanted to do ever since I was a kid, blah, blah, blah. I can't see a way. And he said, well, I can hear from your accent that it's not cut glass enough for the BBC, which of course at the time, everything, including sport, was presented very much like that. I'd hear it. I remember seeing the first ever sporting movie tone commentary, and it was motorsport from the Brooklands banked track before the Second World War, and it went like this. It went, and here they come, there they go. That was it. I thought I could do better than that. Anyway, so where was it? Where have I got to?
Radio.
So he picks up the phone and he said, look, you won't get in the BBC training scheme because that's it. If you haven't been to Oxbridge, you won't get on that. But there is a course that has started in radio journalism, postgraduate. Have you got a degree? Yes, I have. He said, that good, I will write you a reference. And he did. And I got in on this course. There was only, I think, 18 places and thousands of applications, but it did the job, got me in the door. And I did the course. And when I'd finished the course, one of my placements was at BBC Radio Norfolk. Seeing where the partridge thing's coming in now. And then, so I went to Radio Norfolk, and immediately after 2 weeks, they said there's a space opened up at BBC Look East for the regional news at 6:30 every night. Would you like to come over and have a researcher's job? Yeah. So I went over there. It sounded quite humble, but basically I was the gatekeeper for all kinds of stories that would be offered up to be produced on the news. And because of my work writing about stuff, how to spend it and all the rest of it, I kind of got a handle on the sort of wackier stuff, the more edgy stuff. And so whenever an Anne Findlay came in, one of those sort of funny little stories, you know, dog's birthday party, all that kind of stuff, I actually put myself up to go and film them, and I started doing this. I mean, some of the stories that used to come in were hilarious. There was, you know, some of them never made air, but I wish they had. One of which, this guy rings up and he goes, I'm having an exhibition. I went, all right. He said, in a shoebox. I said, what? He said, I said, oh, is it small, is it matchsticks? You know, carved matchsticks. I've seen that on Blue Peter. And he says, oh, by the way, I was up for Blue Peter as well. I'll tell you about that then.
You got a Blue Peter badge?
No, I nearly got, it was between me and John Leslie.
Oh.
I know. Look what happened there. I wonder what he's doing there. Anyway, moving on.
But working.
So,
okay,
I've got to tell you about the story about the exhibition first. He said, no, matchsticks are involved, he said, but all of my sculptures, they're made entirely out of earwax. I said, what? He said, yeah, I've done the Venus de Milo, I've done the Eiffel Tower. He said, it's all there. I said, how? He said, oh, I know what you're going to ask. Where do I get all the wax from? He said, well, my friends and I harvest with big pen tops and Kirby grips. Bit of a connection. Anyway, that didn't make the air, but you get the idea. So that was the sort of stuff I did. Then I fell out with the news editor because he'd always wanted to be a reporter, and there was me busy reporting. He was parachuted in about 2 weeks after I started. So he was a bit mean, and he basically tried to stop me doing any reporting, to, you know, get back into the research booth. And I thought, right, I'm off, because I'm so capable. And an advert came up in Ariel magazine, which is the in-house magazine at BBC, and it was for the head of broadcasting on Funafuti Atoll.
That's what I was going to get to.
In the middle of the South Pacific.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, fuck it, I'll just apply. And what was bizarre was the date, the final deadline for applications had already passed, but it was in that week's Ariel. I thought, well, it's bizarre that it's in there. Maybe that's a typo. I'll just apply. And I think I must have been the only person who applied, because obviously it expired. And sure enough, apparently they'd given it to some guy from Guyana. And then rock and roll.
Bit of techno going on in the background now.
Brian, Techno Brian, I've heard he's here. Anyway, so I applied and they saw BBC and gave me the job. So I went out
You went
there
to Funafuti.
to Funafuti Atoll, the capital island of Tuvalu, which is where the Dateline is in the middle of the Pacific, running their radio station, which had been given to them as an aid project by Australia. And so what I did was I just went to Radio Norfolk, nicked all of their jingles, you know, that the stuff that introduces programs, put them on big reel-to-reel, and flew out for a 2-year contract in the South Pacific, running their radio station. I mean, I had no idea, but it was fine. It was better than what they had, which was nothing. So I trained everyone up. We had cooking shows, we had comedy shows, we had little documentaries, how to cut a canoe.
Sport?
Oh yeah, well, the only race I've ever won, and I have pictures of me with the trophy, with the winners' garlands, is the Funafuti Atoll coast to coast. I won.
I bet none of you out there have won that.
And,
Carlton Kirby's got one up on everybody.
and the only reason I won is because the other two blokes crashed.
I'll edit that bit
Thanks,
out.
mate. Yeah. It was over the airstrip from the reception area with customs, who impounded my licorice all sorts when my parents sent me them. Anyway, straight line race over the airstrip to the diesel generator plant. First to touch the wall wins. Harry Lepeniemi, the Finnish surgeon, crashed into Tom Kravchik, the sewage engineer from Poland, and I won. Fair's fair.
Well, the Paul wasn't very crafty, was he?
So
Right,
yeah, that was my first title.
okay. Going
So-
from all this radio stuff,
Okay,
when did
so I came back.
cycling, Eurosport, when did that happen? Because
Well, I'll tell you.
when 20 years ago, I've been commentating for 20 years ago. 20 years starting with Eurosport. I can remember my introduction to commentary. I'd retired. I'd walked away from cycling for a couple of years. Came back, and it was the early noughties. I went along to the cycle show in London, and Harman and Kelly were there. And Harman and Kelly were the kind of stalwarts of Eurosport at the time.
Right.
And we got chatting, and Harman said to me, that's David Harman said to me, "You'd be a good commentator." I went, "What?" I said, "I can hardly speak English." And he went, I think you'd be good. So next thing I know, the phone rings. Eurosport phoned up and said, "Can you do the Flesh Malone?" That was 20 years ago. Flesh Malone's coming up in about a month's time, but that's 20 years ago, and I went in. I was so nervous. But having met you were there before me, but I
That's right.
didn't know you were involved with
15
cycling
years
then.
before. Well, no, Eurosport. The way this all happened was, I came back from the South Pacific. I was actually on a 2-year contract, but I got honestly the island was shaped like a broken smoke ring with a big lagoon in the middle, and the landmass. I mean, my coast to coast race was only 350 meters long. Don't want to talk about that. Anyway, endurance specialist. There was a sprint on postal bikes. Anyway, so I paid a Swedish freighter to take me off the island, which was an amazing experience because they were dropping medical supplies everywhere on the way to Fiji. So the trip from Funafuti Atoll to Fiji, where I was to get on the international flights to Los Angeles and then home, it took 11 days. And every day we dropped off medical supplies at islands, and we were welcomed like saviours. It was amazing. So there's always be a feast, because it was like first visit. We'd be bringing just things like intubation tubes to help newborn babies breathe and things like that. Weird stuff that they desperately needed. And so we were a godsend for them, and were treated like kings. It was amazing. Anyway, ultimately I get myself back to London, and I rang up TVAM. I'm a man who rings places up, and they pick the right person picks the phone up. This lady picks the phone up. And I
Did
said,
you tell them you're a what?
I just said I'm back.
Oh,
That's all I said.
CK's back.
I'm back. What an arrogance, right? Anyway, I said, I'm just wondering if you've got any freelance work. I've just returned as head of broadcasting on the tropical island on a UN project. I'm previously at the BBC. I am available. Have you got anything? And she said, only on the sports desk. And I said, well, I have actually just won the Funafuti Atoll coast to coast cycling race. So we don't do much cycling, so that's fine. She said, do you know anything else? I was, well, yeah, plenty. I mean, I've done all that. Lied. So I get a job on the overnight sports desk, 9 till 9, writing and occasionally doing some voices onto the morning news. And it was amazing. Some of the people that we had there. Tom Jones, met Tom Jones, had breakfast with Tom Jones. Saw Mariah Carey when she was still a teenager. What an amazing voice. Even as a sort of torn jeaned rapscallion she looked like at the time. It turned out to be a goddess. It was amazing. Had some amazing experience. That's a whole new podcast. Jimmy Mallet. Anyway, Lorraine, she was lovely.
Aye, so Dundee,
I love
Kelly.
Lorraine.
But
Anyway,
Timmy
Lorraine.
Mallet rode his bike around
I know
the
he
UK,
did.
round the coast, all the way.
Exactly. I don't know if he hit any kids on the head with his big helmet, but anyway. So there I was, and then guess what? They lost the franchise to host for the morning TVAM, and much to Margaret Thatcher's chagrin, because Bruce Gingell, who was the slightly lunatic guy who ran the place, once asked me to go and buy a trampette, small trampoline. I said, what do you need that for, Bruce? He said, I'm having an interview with The Independent and I want to look suitably lunatic. So he basically had this put in his office. I bought it. He was just bouncing up and down while he conducted the entire interview with The Independent newspaper. And of course they wrote it up, and he said, any publicity is good publicity. Doesn't care. He said, I don't care who hates me. I don't care who loves me. He said, I just care that people talk about me. I've always kept Bruce's in my head, so all the haters, all the lovers, I give them a... Anyway, so they lost the franchise, and I thought, I'm going to be out of a job here. There's still a year to go, and I thought, well, I better get my arse into gear and look for stuff. Jeff Stelling, who runs Soccer Saturday, where loads of guys sit around the TV and tell you what's happening. You can't see anything. He said to me, I can't go to this gig. It's this new company, I've never heard of it, Eurosport. They've asked me to come over and do some tennis. Do you want to do it? I went, yeah. Well, I said, why can't you go? He said, well, I've got an interview at Sky for this crazy program. He said, I don't know what it's about, but basically it's a load of guys watching TV, talking about it. So I'm going to give it a go. I've got to get a show reel together. So off you pop.
He's still doing it now, isn't he?
Well, this is where our lives departed. I went to have a meeting with somebody called Amélie Guéraud, who signed me up to do the news. Didn't get a tennis gig, but she said, you'd be great for the news. As you've done the news, you're doing our news. And I ended up doing 7 years of news, plus a few other bits and pieces in Paris. But Jeff Stelling went on to be a multi-millionaire.
Oh, well. We let that pause a little.
Yeah.
Just pause.
Anyways, so over in Paris, doing all this stuff, and of course, whenever they needed anybody for anything, I was there because I was doing the news. So I was in every day. So when stuff needed voicing, or indeed the odd gig came up, and lo and behold, they said, "Do you know anything about cycling?" And I said, "I invented the mountain bike."
And your what?
And yeah, exactly. I've won the Tour de Tiansel coast to coast. They said because you've got a request from the ASO to do the VTT mountain bike Tour de France. I said, right up my street. I know all about what gauge wheels are required and how to indeed build a mountain bike.
When was that championship? You say it right.
I know what you're up to. I was in a place called Briançon. And in fact, I met a very young teenager at the time, a newbie, Cadell Evans, bless him. He was amazing, but he used to buy time at interviews by trying to make a joke. So you go, or indeed extending the question. So you go, "Hi, Cadell, how are you?" And he went, "How am I? That's a good question. Yeah, how are you?" I was like, "Hang on, Cadell, I'm interviewing you." Because he was a bit nervous at the time, bless him. I kind of fell in love with Cadell Evans at the time. Followed his career, Mr. Super Clean. I remember berating my cameraman because he had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. He said, "Don't want that macra out here, mate." So yeah.
I apologise to all the Australians that are watching this.
Yeah, I don't know whether I've got the accent right, but I think some of you might tell me it's not that far off. Anyway, so I did the mountain bike Tour de France, which was fantastic. It was a circuit race, probably about 8-9 days, and it was designed by the ASO to be almost a thank you, a party thing for all of the people who've been working on the Tour de France. But all it ended up being was an extension of their time away from home, and it was a bit too much for them, so it never really lived. I think it went for 2 times, maybe 3 maximum. But I was there at that time working with Patrick Chassé, who was brilliant, a sports producer, cycling producer, and he always had me in mind whenever cycling came up. So I was already generating and doing cycling stuff while David Duffield was still doing his thing, various other bits and pieces. But yeah, there was Brian's alluding to Briançon. It was a fateful day in Briançon. Have you got a beeping possibility on this one?
Kind of explain it. The
I'll
pronunciation.
explain it. Okay, I'll do it. Briançon has under the C there's a cedilla which turns the C into an S. I pronounced it accidentally as Briançon, and in France the word brillant means shiny, and the word con is a very bad word.
Yeah.
Should we leave it at that?
Yeah, very well. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So anyway, I'm doing the commentary. They decided at the end of the day that when they were uplinking the highlights of the day, half hour or 25 minutes highlights, I'd do the voice, and they put it up on a video screen. You remember when loads and loads of TVs back in the old days? In the football stadium of Briançon. Anyway, I'm in the car park, so as not to be interfered with the output. I'm in the car park, and of course the place is absolutely packed because they want to see the event. So all the cycling fans have turned up for this VTT. Well, they go in, and I'm in the just on a table like this outside with the lip mic, and my first words were, "Welcome to Briançon." And honestly, the place went up like a goal had been scored. It was just like, wow! And I'm like, what the hell's going on? I didn't, I carried on. And of course, they all knew that it was a circular course. It was coming back ultimately to shiny Seawood. Anyway, so they were all like, oh, he's going to say it again. So the peloton rolled out of Briançon, and do all the commentary, and then back to Briançon, and finished the whole broadcast. And at the end of it, the producer, a guy called Gilbert Botti, lovely guy, he comes up to me, he's crying, and he said, Captain, what is the name of this place? And I went, Briançon. He went, no, it is not that. He said, never say this again. But pissing himself laughing. Anyway, about 15, 20 years later, I'm in Qatar for the Asian Games, doing the track, cycling. And this guy is looking at me, one of the camera operators, and he goes, I know you. I went, really? He went, yes. You are Mr. Shiny Seaward. Mr. Shiny Seaward, here he is. And always, honestly, I was like a hero.
Oh, should have made t-shirts and things like that. Made yourself a millionaire.
Here he is, Mr. Shiny. Anyway, so it is Briançon, kids, not Briançon. Anyway, I didn't get sacked.
Well, good. So, how did you get into cycling?
When I was first into cycling, when I was
apart from mountain biking,
yeah. When I was 15, a friend of mine, Mark Armstrong, bless him, and his dad Ralph was the charge hand. He was the sort of senior director in charge of workforce at Bassett's Licorice All Sorts, and we used to do summer work, the shutdown, basically working in Spanish, helping the engineers, just handing them stuff, really, eating sweets. And when the work ran out, it was only 2 weeks during the shutdown, and then the factory started up again. His dad said, Bassett's have bought a biscuit factory. They make gaufrettes, Biscuiterie Rougère in France. Would you like to go and work there? And we went, yeah, a month. So off we went and worked in this hot, sweaty biscuit factory, just shifting gaufrettes, biscuits. But the Tour de France was on in the canteen, of course. This little cafe. It was a proper cafe next door to this factory, and you got 2 hours 15 minutes famously for lunch. I said, "What's the 15 minutes for?" He said, "That is so you can have a pee and walk to the cafe." then you can have 2 hours and you still have enough time to come back, have a pee-pee, and walk back to your job. So it's so French. I love this. Anyway, so we're there each day, and of course the Tour de France is on the TV. And Bernardino, who looked like Elvis, he was amazing.
Yeah.
I think he was wearing the Leeds jersey at the time on a time trial. I'll never forget it. Puts on the. I just thought, what a guy! That's amazing. And of course they were all into it. It was very infectious. Then the Tour comes through, Les Depuis, and I was bowled over. And from that moment on, I was like a cycling nut, and it was always following the Tour, and it was just so it was always within me. And I was always seeking out cycling stuff. So the National Hill Climb was very close to me in Derbyshire, just at Winnett's Pass. We'd go along there, just put down a blanket and watch them all struggle past at 28%. It was just fantastic.
Can you remember your first commentary in cycling?
First cycling commentary? Well, it would have been the VTC Tour.
Yeah, apart from mountain biking, road cycling. Yeah, that's predominantly what you do now, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it was Kern, Brussels Kern.
Who with?
David Duffield.
Okay.
David Harmon had now kind of taken over as the lead comms first choice within Eurosport, and so he was with Sean Kelly, and they were. I think they were away in Belgium, and I was called in to do that. So racing.
Because there wasn't a lot of racing back then. It was the home of kind of cycling, but there wasn't a lot of racing.
There was enough really to keep a very short roster.
Yeah.
But of course, with the expansion of flag to line in particular, I guess you need more people, particularly on big days, as you know. And so the role kind of expanded, and so my first jobs were always with David Duffield. I would be the lead and he would be the expert. Okay. And it was a way of them gently expanding the roster. And they were really, I think they were a bit surprised, because at the time, because the cycling gig wasn't available, I was doing Speedway Grand Prix and motorcycling and endurance car racing. I ended up doing that. But that motorsport capability, particularly Grand Prix Speedway, which is only 3 laps of high octane, very, very close sprint finish every time, with riders who are very closely matched at GP level. So that gave me the template to call a sprint finish. And famously, David Harmon said to me, Tour of Turkey, I can't go. Do you want to go? I went, yeah. And I went with a certain Mr. Brian Smith. And
that was one of your first cycling gigs?
Well, it was. There'd been a few up until that point, but that was my first tour that hadn't been mounted by.
Is that the famous one?
That's the famous one, yeah. So Brian and I went over, and the finish of Ilio Kaiser.
2012.
2012, that was it. That was where I got my first big break on a stage race. Now, I think it'd been given to me, really. I think they'd suggested somebody else, and David Harmon said, no, give it to Carlton. In fact, that's exactly what happened. And I think I was a bit like there's something in the BBC called the Sue Lawley effect.
Yeah.
Terry Wogan used to do a weekly, then a bi-weekly, and then I think it was 5 nights a week he ended up doing. And so he couldn't constantly do it, and they replaced him when he went on holiday or had a break with Kenneth Williams from the Carry On movies. And Kenneth Williams was so good, everyone just went, sack Wogan, Williams is brilliant. And so Terry Wogan had written into his contract that he personally was the person to select his replacement whenever he took a break. And the person he picked was Sue Lawley, because she was never going to be a danger of basically upsetting the apple cart, being better than Terry Wogan. So the Sue Lawley effect.
You were the safe bet.
I was the safe bet. I was the person who was going to be rubbish. But anyways, so we had this amazing call, Brian and I.
Well, I said very.
No, you were very much part of it, because I mean I was trampling all over you because I didn't know what else to do, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it's a famous thing. Go and look it up. Ilio Kaiser
We had an interview with him,
Was
didn't
it
we?
Into Marmaras?
It was Izmir.
Izmir, that's right.
Izmir, and it was just go and look at it. You look it up. 2012, Elio Kaiser. He didn't win much.
We'll have to put our names in because there is a world feed version.
Yeah, but we got an interview with him, and he loves that commentary. And it was absolutely amazing.
Well, you know, in Belgium they have the Sports Awards, which are the same as the BBC Sports Personality of the Year Awards. And Elio Kaiser, of course, and that finish were on that year's awards. And they played out the English commentary when they showed it on national television in Belgium. And bearing in mind, we're in Belgium, the crucible of cycling. And they decided to play my commentary because it was so animated, so absolutely crazy, that they thought it's got to be out there. So they put it on the national, on this award. So can you imagine someone like Gary Lineker introducing it, and then it goes up on the screen. It's played out to the entire nation. My finish, mine and Brian's finish with Elio Kaiser, and then the interviewer at the end goes, well, you know, everyone's like, wow, like this, and he says, what an amazing finish. Amazing ride, Elio. Well done. And what a fabulous commentary as well, which made it all the more special. From the one, the only, Phil Liggett.
Yeah, Phil was the voice of cycling at the time.
No! Anyway.
Right, do you know my story from Turkey? Because we went out, we were quite fortunate to go out to Turkey and do it there, right? But most of the time, the commentary at the time was in our HQ for Eurosport in Feltham, which was a lovely part of south west London. But
Freddie Mercury was born there.
yeah, but just before that, a couple of years before, I got an opportunity. Like I said before, I got Flash Ballon, and then they came up and said, "Would you like to do a tour of Turkey?" I said, "Yeah, fine." So went into Feltham, and it was David Duffield I was doing it with, right? And so I was doing a tour of Turkey with David Duffield. And he was talking away, and I knew that because I travelled in, because I was only about an hour and 15 minutes away. But David Duffield was staying in one of the local hotels, and he was commenting like he normally does, telling stories. And he goes, "Oh, last night we went out for a lovely Turkish meal, absolutely lovely Turkish meal." And he's, I'm sitting next to him in the commentary box, and he pulls out a bit of paper from his top pocket, right, and then opens it up, and he said, "Oh, the menu was fantastic." So he'd written down a few of the Turkish starters, main courses, desserts, and he starts to, and I'm sat there as a kind of newbie person going, "Where's the Turkish in Feltham?" Right, with this sort of menu? I would go to that, but he was trying to tell everybody that this was the menu, but you know, for me sitting there as a newbie commentator, and he says, "You're lying, you're fibbing, how can you get away with that?"
You said this on the commercial breaks, I presume.
Yeah, so yeah, that was my kind of introduction, working with David Duffield. The way he, you know, what we used to do before working in Feltham is go into the office, and I actually enjoyed that because we got to meet the snooker guys and various other sports, the winter sports guys, and I was talking to someone not long ago saying remote commentary, and this is what I was going to talk to you about, how cycling commentary has changed over the years. Back in the day, we used to go into kind of Feltham, apart from the Tour de France and maybe Paris-Nice and Tour of Turkey and things like that. The majority of it was in Feltham, and that was the HQ for Eurosport. So you went in and you met, you know, the staff members of Eurosport, which were all lovely, and you know the girls that used to look after us in commentary and book us and things like that, and all the other kind of sports commentators. And I used to enjoy that. I used to go, because we had to go in 2 hours before to do the prep and make sure we were in travel time and things like that. But just catching up with, you know, some of the other guys and learning what they're doing, which for me, I kind of miss. You know, we went into lockdown because and we'll talk about this in a little bit.
There is a question coming.
Yeah, but we went. You've had enough talking. Come on. We've kind of travelled in races, the Giro and the Tour and the Vuelta and all this sort of stuff. But nowadays, commentary is predominantly remotely.
Yes.
Sometimes in Chiswick, we worked in Chiswick, but at that day it was all in Feltham, and it was great. And I miss that sort of thing. So the question is coming now. Over the years, what have you preferred? Have you preferred going into Feltham in that environment, going into Chiswick where you don't meet any of the other commentators now? It's very, or you work a bit remote, or do you like going on site? How has it changed, and what's your preference?
Well, being on site is a privilege, and it's a diminishing one, unfortunately, because it's just becoming more and more rare, more and more infrequent. It's not more rare; it's rarer. People writing in. You know, people pick me up on syntax sometimes. It drives me nuts. But anyway, more on pronunciation. Fascism later, but I presume. But yeah, being on site was great. But I used to spend, like, I don't know, 7 months of the year, honestly, at the height of it, because I used to do all the world feed stuff as well for all of the Italian races. I'd be out there for the tour itself, classics, just about anything and everything. I was out on the road, and you know, I kind of missed my own family growing up, to be honest. Steph, my lovely wife, and I had kids very late. Everyone assumes that I'm their granddad, but they're only 14 and 17 now, my kids. So they came along quite late, and I missed all of that, like really, their sort of early years. I mean, when I was at home, it was fantastic because I was there, you know, all week. But yeah, that was the hard bit of it. But of course, it gave us such an amazing encyclopedia of racing and all of climbs, even individual climbs. You know, we've done them so many times. That I think that reflected knowledge helped us to animate the remote stuff, because we were able to pull in all of that knowledge. You know, if we're passing by a sausage shop on the approach to the Kern Brussels Kern, I'll be telling you about it.
It gives you some substance
It
to
does.
talk about,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
also, if you were lucky, you got to meet some of the riders at Tells, but
Absolutely.
more oftenly we would be ahead of the race and you wouldn't meet. But just talking to the general public, and
Listen,
the atmosphere was...
even being able to talk through the approaches to finishes.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be in the car, let's say, with Sean Kelly. I'd be making notes as we'd be driving to finish, and he'd be going. I'd be taking him down, and he'd say, "This is going to be shit." I'd say, "Should I just write down pinch point, Sean?"
Do you know what you meant? You mentioned Sean, right? The one thing that it cracks me up all the time is when you go along to, like say, the Tour de France, and when you go along, and we're commentators are all in the car together, and we go along to the parking, and the parking
He is a parking
person,
god.
yeah, says park there, and Sean, and I'll be sitting in the back, Carlton being in the front driving, Sean there, and Sean may go, right, we'll park there. I can't do the accent. We'll park there, and then Carlton's going, no, we're going. And Sean, in his mind, a bike rider's mind, a winning mind, would be always thinking the finish,
Yep.
right? So
The escape.
we're getting there, right? Always a Sean, he's a winner, right? Born winner. He's always thinking about beating everybody else away,
Oh my
right?
God.
And the conversations on
When
the
he gets
parking place
The taste. And he's
was,
driving.
it would be 10-15 minutes in the car deliberating where we park. That to me just used to crack me up the whole time.
Sean was as god at that. I mean, he'd say things like, "Right, I've got ourselves an absolutely gem," and I knew it was just a parking spot. For him, this was the biggest achievement of the day. That and beating the Germans to the hotel was his main thing. And honestly, we'd be going sideways around corners if he was trailing them. It was scary stuff sometimes. But yeah, Sean was always being called as well. And quite often, it was the car was called to be a telephone number, of course, on your pass. And they call up, and when they found out it was Sean Kelly, everything was fine. Just leave the car where it is. I remember once we were on Galibier, and he said, "Right, you've got to experience this. I'm going to let you drive off the mountain." Coming off this mountain, and I mean, Sean is a devil. He likes putting people in spots, doesn't he? He likes putting down landmines for you to accidentally tread on, and he finds it hilarious. So he says, "It's your driving. You need to experience this. Coming off a mountain, it's unbelievable." And of course, it is, because everyone's piling off. Race is finished, and of course, everyone's trying to get in the convoy. They said, "Quick, behind the ambulance." So we get behind the ambulance, and we're immediately called out to the side of the road. So like further down the mountain, like you out the road, and so they're all going, wait for the team buses to come. And Sean's, and they look in, and the security guy who's about to rip my badges off, which is what they do, is then go and collect them and say, "You're very, very sorry." Maybe pay a fine. And he looks in, he's seen Sean Kelly, and he went, "Ah, Monsieur Kelly, Monsieur Paris." He said, "Yes, indeed. It was one of my favourite races." He went, "Oh, monsieur, absolument, continue." So, of course, we're back in, by now a busy convoy. But as we've waited, the Tinkoff bus, as it turned out to be, which was this amazing thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was millions, it must have been millions, and it was in a sort of a silvery gold, and it pulled in, and it wasn't for the riders, it was just for him. I think it had a helipad on the roof, it was that big. Unbelievable. But this thing pulls in, and Sean Kelly, a little glint in his eye, he goes, "That's very disrespectful. I think you need to backseat your spot." So I'm going forward, and this huge thing is coming at me, and I'm going a bit further forward, and he's coming a little bit further forward. And in the end, there's the two of us, and he said, "Floor it," and I did. And my wing mirror put a big scratch down the side of the door, the driver's door on this thing, because I'm in an English drive car, so my window's open. He's in obviously a continental drive, so we're looking at each other like this. I'm looking up at the
So
driver.
instead of Tinkoff, it's now a Dinkoff.
Fuck. They went completely mad. So I'm only about 6-7 yards in front at this point. The driver gets out, and all these security guys with wires out of their ears and bulging side pockets, armed. They all jump out and start jumping around like gorillas, because Tinkoff's truck has just been scratched. And Sean Kelly goes, "I think we better get out of here." Like, how? He said, "Just honk the horn and get us out of here. We'll get beaten up." And so that was it. That was it.
Right, I'm going to get out of here as well now and move on to your commentary, right? I've been
I thought
commentating.
that was a cue for us to go get some lunch.
No, we've got to do this first, and we'll come back later. We'll
Okay.
have lunch, we'll come back later. But I think over the years you have got, okay, you don't always get the right names and everything perfect, but I'm being serious now. But you are the finisher. You have got the best finish in the cycling game, right? And I know that I started this by saying Andrew Greipel calls you the screamer,
Yeah.
and there's other people. I remember Mark Cavendish. Remember again Turkey, Mark Cavendish.
Oh yeah.
And Mark listens to commentary, and he picks on everything. And we flew out there, and we got in the back of one of these vans to go, I think,
transfer,
from
wasn't it?
Antalya to Alanya.
Well, it was nearly at the Syrian border. It was a long trip.
Yeah. So
5-hour
we
transfer.
were at the back of the van, and next thing, Mark comes to the van, and he's shepherded into the van, and he sees me, he comes to the back, and then he looks at Carlton and goes, "So can I double take?" He sits down, and he's like, "I don't think at that time you were Mark's favourite commentator."
Well,
but
I know-
and
I know
that trip, he's my best of buddies.
Oh, he's such a lovely bloke. I was always been super fond of Mark, but especially when I think the upset with Mark came from Milano San Remo when he won. Because I was doing the world feed at the time, and so our remit from the Italian broadcasters was that we weren't to be partisan. We couldn't cheer on the Brits. We had to cheer on everybody. And that's fair enough, I understand that, because it goes out to Australia, goes out to the United States, South Africa, lots of other English-speaking territories. Our voice was going to be heard. And when Mark crossed the line, I really, honestly wasn't sure if he'd won.
Yeah, no, it was a close one with
It was really-
Henry Kousler.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And so I went to a photo, And I think Mark was a bit upset that I hadn't actually
Called his name.
or indeed picked him up. And I think it was either then or a year later, Luke Rowe finished in the top 10. And I think equally, I didn't eulogise Luke Rowe's top 10, but the same deal. I've been told you've got to be really careful.
Yeah.
I think it was the year Garrett's won, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, could have been.
So Garrett's won. But yeah, there was a story about that as well. The Italian commentator nearly got sacked because Garrett's was the new champion, and your man from Quebec had been the champion the year before.
Chile.
No, the Australian.
Oh, the Australian champion. Was it Gossi?
Gossi, yeah. And they called Gossi. They went. The Italians were just. This is a side road. You get these with my country. Is that the Italians went?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry for the. I'll cut the accent. I'm sorry for the graphic. It's clearly, of course, Matt Goss, this one. And they went on and on and on about it. Matt Goss. And then it came to the podium, Matt Goss. And then, of course, they get to the podium and went, oh, Sam again. Not realising that the Italian national championships take place in January, of course. Everyone else is in the summer. So they thought that last year's champion.
The Australians is in January.
Exactly that. They thought the Aussie champion was, in fact, Goss, and it wasn't, it was Garrett's. So the producer comes in and goes, this massive director comes in and goes, Carlton, who is the winner today? I said, Simon Garrett. He went, did you say that at the line? I said, yes. That was it. He was thinking, oh, well, if everyone got it wrong, that's fine. We got it right.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the, what was the question? Where were we?
Right, we're talking about. Well, I was talking about bringing Arbor. I went off in a tangent, but
Me too.
I think you're, and it's not the one Belgian beer that we've had. Your commentary to me, and it's actually talking to someone else about.
Oh, yeah, I was
this.
talking about Mark, weren't we?
We're talking about Mark in the back of the car, but before that, you can always tell if I'm not in commentary duty and I'm listening to you, I'll be doing different things and listening, because as a kind of bike rider, an ex-pro bike rider, you kind of know what's going to happen. You know, the breakaways away and that, the peloton, and you kind of know what's going to happen. But some commentators, you know when something's happening, and you're definitely one of them, that it gets your ear. So whenever I'm doing other things, I'm maybe ironing or hoovering around the house when I've got the commentary on, you always spark an interest. And like I said to you,
But only if it's worthwhile. I don't go mad for a puncture,
no,
unless it's important. So yeah,
No.
I mean, light and shade is what it's all about. I mean, there's a lot of light, and
do you think
Like
styles
this
of commentary's changed? Because I've listened to you in other sports as well, and the recent Olympics there, when you're doing the speed skating, it's very much related to
track cycling without bikes.
track cycling. But do you think commentary's changed a little bit?
It has. It has. I mean, the move is to have former athletes presenting sport in particular. And I mean, that move began a long time ago. Steve Cram into athletics, I think. There was a few others as well. Brennan Foster, I think he was. And the move was to get the brains of the sport to present. And I get that, and it works sometimes. But there's a lot of time when the roles are a bit distinct. One of the things that really bores me on a day which should be full of description, even if you're going over the Milanese plain, are just numbers. I don't like numbers.
Well, pro cycling stats, just
No, I don't. No, Pro Cycling Stats actually do a fantastic job,
Yeah.
and I think that's great. But it's not the role of a commentator to read Pro Cycling Stats and say things like, "Oh, I seem to remember he started his career with Crédit Agricole." Yeah, okay. If you're going to say that, say why you know that and where was the first time you came across Crédit Agricole. Don't just say it, because otherwise that's just reading Pro Cycling Stats, which is bollocks, which I'm allowed to say because it just means nonsense. It went to the High Court with the Sex Pistols album back in the day, and they said it just means nonsense. You can say bollocks whenever you want to. Bollocks. That is bollocks. No, so if I was saying, I don't know, I've just picked Crédit Agricole, I would regale you with a story about Crédit Agricole, which was Tour of Britain, Preston, the mayor welcoming. They've come a long way, ladies and gentlemen. This team. So let's give a big hand to the most famous team in our peloton here. It is Credit Agricole.
Do you know that? You say that, Carlton. Do you know, I got asked this once. Is as you do there, and AG2 are two separate teams? That's a serious question I got asked.
Oh, what a load of nonsense. Do you remember Leopard Trek?
Yeah,
remember that?
Leopard.
Yeah. Well, I was at a press conference. It was at the Tour of Luxembourg, and the Schlecks were there, and everyone was there, and they said, it was a press conference, and they said, before we start, I'd just like to say that the team is Leopard Trek. Leopard Trek. Everyone is saying Leopard Trek. It's Leopard Trek. And I said, may I just ask a question? He said, of course. I said, what does leopard mean? And they said, it means leopard. I said, well, bollocks.
There's a lot of bollocks in this podcast today. But in France,
maybe that should be the time.
But in France, on the commentary, I was always Brian Smith, and it didn't really bother me.
Exactly. I think Daniel Lloyd was Daniel Lloyd. They put an H in there somehow, but yeah, nobody cares. It's like I'm called Carlton Kirby. I think it's a bit exotic, to be honest.
Okay, moving on again. Right, I've not got any kind of cliches or any kind of words and things
Really?
apart from and what's the other one?
The cliche. This is one of your cliches.
You know, but you've got loads of cliches.
Here's a cliche for you.
Yeah, well, I just try to clear my throat. If you hear that during commentary, that's me clearing my throat. But yeah, I'll go. You know. I think that's a little bit of a kind of Scottish thing. And I put, sometimes you get
my big one is meanwhile.
Yeah, you get tics. We get, and as a commentator, you get verbal tics, and
I like to hear about them. Because people tell me, and then I iron them out.
Yeah, I've got one or two people that give me some feedback and things like that. If I'm saying something, or various other things. Obviously, these things. So every commentator's got verbal tics.
Sean's is yes, well.
Yes. Well. Right. But commentary
Can I
cliches.
just tell you something?
Okay.
At the bike show, this company that made mugs came up and they presented Sean Kelly with 3 mugs, and one said yes, well, the other one said certainly with an extra T in it, and the other one said make the calculation. And they said, we'd like to give you these, and if you'd accept them and give us permission, we'd like to sell them. And he went, all right.
That's another bollocks.
And then he said, you complete lack of respect.
No, Sean, I've seen Kelly bingo card, and it's got all the say. Look, we all love him for it, and I've said to Sean, you could make a fortune, but
I'll tell you something. Sean Kelly is like a Rolls Royce. There's nothing.
You wouldn't change him.
Not at all.
No.
There is so much knowledge in there. There is this mischievousness about him that I think just comes out into the commentary. And he is a gold standard. He is fantastic. He's just a lovely mix and a fantastic bloke. So whatever we say is out of pure affection for the man.
Right, cliches. You've actually got a cliche that's been banned.
Oh yeah, yeah. Puppy Paws. That was one of mine. Puppy Paws was adopted, and he was even called Puppy Paws when the UCI banned it. So that's one of mine. The Magic Spanner is one of mine. Which is
a book about that.
Title of my first book. Second book is of course Sticky Bottle, which
that's a thing at the moment. Sticky Bottle, isn't it? After some disqualifications it's Sticky Bottle is really sticky at the moment.
They're getting more handy about it, and they should do as well, because it's been getting ridiculous. Everyone gets thirsty on a climb all of a sudden. Yeah.
But there's lots of things that we can talk about in the pro peloton. I've been in the pro peloton as a rider and a manager, and I see loads of things happening. It's not just sticky bottles, sticky gels. I've seen one rider over the top of, you mentioned the Glibia, get within the last kilometre of the top of the climb, he's getting 12 gels. He never once down one of these gels.
Loves those gels.
Yeah, never once.
If you actually take a bottle and then throw it, that is a sign that, one, you don't want the weight, and secondly, you didn't need it in the first place. So yeah.
But the other thing is, we'll just touch upon it at the moment. Motorbikes. We as TV, we want motorbikes there to show us the TV pictures.
Yeah.
But in the Tour de France in 2015, Edvard Boasson-Hagen in the Roubaix stage, I thought a very good chance of winning. And a rider, I'm not going to name him, a rider attacked after the bike, and Edvard said afterwards, once he got behind the bike and the rider who he was had no chance of bringing him back. And I think Jakob Fuglsang, who's recently said in the press, Nico,
Well, Charles,
Going, mate. Good.
Carlton.
we're just doing a
You're
wee
live.
podcast.
You're live.
Gent Wevelgem
That's
winner, Nico Matan,
Mr. Quaremont.
Mr.
Live
Quaremont.
from Oudenaarde.
He's got his
Yes.
own beer now.
How it's going? No, are you drinking the wrong beer?
Oh, sorry, mate.
Yeah,
No, it's no problem. The next one, I will pay you a Quaremont.
You're
yeah,
very
we'll
kind.
come in and see you.
Come in.
Yeah, we'll come in. Right, that was Nico Matan. We won Gent Wevelgem. I raced with him for many years. He's Mr. Quaremont in cycling now.
Held the
So
record up there for a while.
yeah, the thing is, we're going to have to have another beer by Nico. So right, so we need to crack on with this before we have another beer. So yeah, there's a lot of things in cycling, but we're not here to comment about this. But we're here to talk about you and your commentary, the style of commentary and things like that, and what you enjoy doing. So we're here quite fortunately in Oudenaarde for the Ron van Vlaanderen, and I think we have to kind of touch on. You've been coming to a few races now. You've been working with RCS a lot and things like that. What do you get excited about coming on site to races?
Oh gosh, well, I mean, to me, the most important thing is the course, because at the press conferences, you kind of get a PR speak. At the hotels is where you really find stuff out, and you usually find that out from people who've got close relationships to certain riders, and then you can swap information. So it's the course around the riders. It's not necessarily the riders themselves, because you can't just break into a rider's mind and get them to talk to you. And in fact, if you go to a press conference, all you're going to get is the PR speak. And so it's the community, the course itself. I don't mean the route map, but the course itself is what is important. Actually getting to talk to people around the race. I mean, we're gonna go in there and we're gonna find stuff out.
Yeah,
Right now,
Yeah.
because we're going to be talking to you now.
it's all content.
Exactly. And all of this you would never have a chance of getting. I mean, I understand that when COVID came, that was the killing of live comms on site, because the men who count the beans to pay the bills realised that they had saved an absolute fortune on commentary positions, which are very expensive, plus all the logistics, flight, hotels, you name it. Suddenly, they said, well, we can't tell the difference because you're commentating from a screen at the finish line, which is true. So why can't you commentate from a screen in a studio? So I get that, but, and with our reflected knowledge that we carried from other events, we can animate. But the real gold, day by day, and the freshness, that comes from actually being on site, talking to those around the race, on the course themselves. And that's where you get your gems. And that's what Brian and I'll be bringing to our world feed commentary for Flanders, going out in Canada, the United States. Oh, it's the other way around. The United States, Canada, different salutes. I know, it's crazy stuff. Stuff I know. It's amazing. I don't know what the Australian salute is actually. But,
No, I don't
is
know.
it that? Another beer, mate.
Well, this podcast doesn't finish here. We've had an invitation inside
Yeah.
to go and have a beer at Quaremont with Nico Matan, Mr. Quaremont. So we're going to take that.
We're going to pick up part 2 later, is that?
But we're going to pick up part 2. Stay with us. We might look for some mules marinier with some frites mayonnaise and maybe have try another Belgian beer.
Do you know what my favourite is? Mexicanos frit with pepper sauce. I may have to introduce you. It's the Belgian Loire.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a look at that, Carlton. And also I'm going to add, after we do our evening meal, I'm going to try and show you Carlton at his best tomorrow. I'm going to try and show you your finish, so you better be good tomorrow, for the race. So I
already called Pippo Garner on that amazing finish in the Droit d'Or.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can get you a clip to pop into your podcast, I will.
So I won't be able to talk. I'll just be trying to film. So I'll put that at the end to show the man in action. Okay. So until this evening, we say, see you later. Good morning. Sorry we didn't bring you dinner last night. We had a fantastic dinner. I'll let Carlton explain. What did you have last night? Because you had a bit of a stew, a delicacy. What was it called?
It was. Thanks, mate. I have no idea what it was called.
Do you want me to help you?
Go on then.
Varkenswagen.
Schwagen?
Yeah, Varkenswagen. What was it and what was it like?
Pig's cheeks. It was amazing. I didn't realise pigs had such big cheeks. But yeah, it was a stew. They'd taken this. It looked a bit like a squash cricket ball, I've got to say. That's a game, Brian, we play in the south.
Yeah, we're not very good in Scotland.
You're not too bad, to be fair. But yeah, stewed and beautiful. Honestly, it was amazing. Brian, however, ordered himself a T-bone steak, which came back like a beer mat.
Yeah, actually, we were hosted by the person that's looking after us, Dirk here, and I just said order for us. He ordered a beer for us, and that was rather nice as well.
Gorgeous.
And he ordered the food. Actually, we swapped. So he ordered a steak for me and a burger for himself, and I get the burger. He got the steak. Right, and Carlton got the Varkenswagen.
Yeah,
right.
Which was lovely. It's amazing.
Right, as you can see, we're in our office for the day. We're going to be here for the next 6, 7, maybe 8 hours.
Finish line
Over there.
Portaloo just out the back. Got some Pepsi. Other cola varieties are available.
No Shirley.
No.
Okay. Right. So we're at the Ron van Vlaanderen start, right? And Carlton, I'm going to pick your brains.
Oh gosh.
What's an offer?
Won't take long.
What's an offer today? This is going to go out next week, so it's going to be after the race. So what are your predictions?
My predictions. Well, first of all, the prediction is the wind is picking up and it's going to be immense. In the opening section, we've got a long run before we actually get to our first obstacles today. We've got 6 pavé sections. Yeah, exactly. We have 109k before we actually even begin the dodgy stuff. But in the wide open windy day that we've got, it's going to be amazing. High cloud, suspicion we might get a little bit of rain, but not too much. And it may have dried up by the time we get to the Hellingen, which really characterised the day. And there's going to be 16 tests of Hellingen. We can't decide whether it's 13 or 12 climbs in total, because one of them is slightly amended on a different approach. But we'll argue about that later. Might come to blows. But basically, those are our climbs. There you go, that we're dealing with. I printed those off nicely. Thank you, Pro Cycling Stats. This is our day ahead with the various tests along the way.
This is the special one. This is
the
colour coordinated.
This is the colour coordinated start sheet. There we go.
I don't understand it, but Carlton does.
Yes. So the question is, can anyone stop Tadej Pogačar, and will the Belgians get joy? In the past, head-to-head with Mathieu van der Poel, Pog leads 2-1 in that particular head-to-head, but van der Poel has won it 3 times, and he could become the first rider ever to win it 4 times in the history of the race.
I know, it's amazing. It's been, 9 years since a Belgian won this race, so, they are desperate. Over the last few years, it's been Pogačar, van der Poel, and, who's stopping them? I'm actually predicting Pogačar's going to win this one.
Oh. You're pushing the bar out then.
Well, looking at history, looking at Milan-San Remo, Ron van Vlaanderen, and Paris-Roubaix in 1 year. And Sean Kelly's up there. He won the Milan-San Remo, and this is in 1 year. Second because he never won this race. Sorry, Sean. Ron van Vlaanderen, and first in Paris-Roubaix. That's equal to what Mathieu van der Poel did last year, right? So Pogačar's won Milan-San Remo. I think he's going to win today.
Let's see about Paris-Roubaix. But
These were supposed to be my predictions, by the way. But anyway.
well, okay, go. Don't want to steal your thunder, but
No, I'm with you. But Remco Evenepoel, a late addition, and a man who's carrying a lot of anger at the moment, it seems. Got a lot to prove. He's up against his nemesis. Somebody kind of circles around, really. They for the cameras, they kind of put their arms around each other, but there's a proper rivalry there with him and Van Aert. I think Van Aert's got a great chance today to actually upset everybody. If it comes to a sprint, he's going to be very much part of proceedings. It's a question whether Evenepoel actually just takes the bait when he really shouldn't. It's like a spawning salmon going for the lure. This is keeping it Scottish for you. There's no need for him to chase down everything, but he almost instinctively does so. And he tuckers himself out. If he can preserve himself, Remco could do it.
well, you covered Catalonia and you saw how good he was there. Like, okay, a little bit up and down, but this is his debut, right, here in the Ron van Vlaanderen. Do I think he could ride well? Yes. But he needs to get into the final, right? The trouble with Evenepoel, for me, is that he wastes too much energy. And in this race, it's about conserving energy.
And sometimes emotional energy as well. We've seen that in the Worlds. We've seen it. Well, you've seen losing his rag with Jonas Vingegaard the other day as well in Catalonia. Yeah. If he can keep his head where it needs to be, then his legs work better. And I just think he could be amazing. So,
well, I hope he's there. I really do hope he's there. Yeah. And for the Belgians, it would make it better if Wout van Aert and Evenepoel would work together. But everybody knows the history. It goes back to when the Worlds were here in Louv, and they never want to work together. I don't think Evenepoel wants to work with anybody. So I really do think that he's got a chance, but I just think this is a race. It's not about showing how good you are. It's about saving as much as you can for the fight. 278 kilometres.
It's a long way. And with the Hellingen, hell for the riders, heaven for us. I'm actually wondering whether Wout van Aert, he had the heartbreak of really going deep in midweek in the Dwar d'Or and then losing out to Pippo Ganna at the very last. How he bounces back for that, I don't know. I'd love to think that he can still do it, but he went an awful long way solo on a very tough Dwar d'Or, which is the prelude to this, essentially, along with the rest of the festival. In fact, this monument is, to my mind, the greatest of all the monuments. I think it's the most difficult to win, and I think it can be the most variable as well. It's a brilliant, brilliant parkour, and there's no guarantees. Let's put it that way. I think you're absolutely right. Tadej Pogacar is definitely the man to beat, but there are riders out there who could surprise. I mean, you've seen even great teams like Visma Lease Bike. They have messed up team-wise in the past. In fact, talking about this year's Dwar d'Or, last year's Dwar d'Or, they absolutely blew it where they had strength in depth and lost. So yeah, I think it could come down. Occasionally you get surprises. Was Bettiol the last surprise out there?
You would think so, yeah, because it's been dominated by some big names in the past. And, you know, even the kind of sprints, maybe, you can remember when Pogacar came in here.
This sounds like a
group of two,
rather than a review, doesn't it?
I know. A group of two and ended up fourth. Yeah. So, yeah, the sprints have been quite strange coming here after 278 kilometres. It's a long, long way. But people said to us, oh, you've got a long day ahead of you. I don't think of it like this, because in this race, there's always something happening. Every few kilometres, you're either going pavy, you're going up a hill, or something's happening. There's crashes, there's punctures, there's everything happening. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I would echo you, the fact is, we've got 5 monuments. I really don't know what you have to do to be a monument, right, for a race. But we've got 5 monuments in cycling. This to me is like the World Championships of the monuments. This is the one that everybody wants to win. This was one that Sean Kelly never got to win, unfortunately. And he lived in Belgium and he so wanted to win this one, he never got it. And I had a beer in the square in Oudenaar last night with Johan Mazel, 3 times winner of this race. And every time he sees Sean, he gives him a wee nudge and says, "Did you win, Ron Van Aert?" It's a sore point for Sean.
Yes,
but
a bit like the Worlds. Every time we go past Grenoble, never won that either.
And talk to Le Mans,
but he won everything else.
He did.
Anyway, back to this. Surprises. It's no good just picking the favourites. Who's going to come left field and potentially get on the podium?
Have you put any bets on today?
No, can't, because we're
abroad.
I'm geo-locked. Otherwise, I would.
If you did, I'm going to give you a Scottish £10 note. Who's it on?
Perstrand Hagenes.
Yes, good shout.
Yeah,
good shout.
I think,
but it depends on that dynamic with Wout van Aert.
Yeah, I know it does. But he's got everything in the toolbox to win this, and he's on stellar form. He's actually on the comeback at the moment. If he gets in the right move, and Wout van Aert gets on the radio and says, just go for it, he can win it.
Yeah. I'm just going to finish before, I'm going to show you after this, the master, how he finishes a race. So you're going to be filmed. Like, make sure you're looking good when it comes to the last kilometre, because I'm going to be filming you.
There'll be a lot of spit.
And I'm going to be putting it out on this podcast. But we were given a fact last night with our host, Dirk. We have got no person in this race today that's ridden the old parkour when it used to finish in Nineveh.
That's right.
So completely new.
It would have been Davenport, but I don't think he's included. No, he's not. But yeah, it's amazing. So completely new. I guess since 2014, but yeah, all the old guard have kind of
Gone.
now missing. But yeah, I'll never forget what that guy said to you last night. What are you doing standing in my garden? Yeah.
Well, I said I was going to finish. I'm going to finish now. This place is amazing. Look, it's
It was
a main
good
road.
night.
Yeah, it was a main road. This is the main road into Oudenaarde, and it's not the most. It's just like a straight road anywhere in the world, but the way they've dressed it up, you know, the hospitality is opposite. We're in the commentary box. It looks amazing. Plenty of space for everybody, because the crowds here later on are going to be amazing. I've been here before a few times, and it's one of the best crowds you get at a finishing line. So I hope you're watching it, and I'll be showing you Carlton Kirby, the master at his work later on, and we might catch you later on our way back to London on the Eurostar. See you later.
As he possibly could to neutralise one of the greatest riders that's ever been on the planet. There's often comparisons between himself and Eddie Merckx, but Tadej Pogačar has started to indeed push the boundaries of what's possible in professional cycling ever further away and in the distance from anyone who cares to ride against him. He came out and he once tried to be Yankee. He crashed in San Remo and still won it. He then comes here and indeed delivers once more. Tadej Pogačar is an absolute phenomenon. This will be 3 wins at the Tour of Flanders. He's 100% this year, and it looks like nobody is going to stop him. It'll be Paris-Roubaix next weekend for him. What on earth will happen there, I do not know. What we know here is that this man has yet again issued a huge marker to everybody. How on earth do you cope with somebody like Tadej Pogačar? Yesterday, today, and indeed tomorrow. He's our man. Tadej Pogačar brings it in, and we look back to welcome Mathieu van der Poel, who's our closest man to him. Tadej Pogačar moving on to 3 wins in this. Mathieu van der Poel already has 3 wins here in Flanders, was hoping for 4, and a brave effort by him on the climbs here, but ultimately Tadej Pogačar just had the grinding down of everybody. Not to dust, you understand. Mathieu van der Poel is a big man, a huge presence within cycling, but even he has been beaten by Tadej Pogačar. He cruises across the line, knowing that that was one hell of a fight in all different weather conditions, but the storm ultimately kicked up by our winner. Absolutely phenomenal. And now we wait for the biggest cheer of the day, I've got to tell you, for Mr. Debutant himself, Remco Evenepoel, who, as this celebration of mutual congratulations rolls between Van der Poel and Pogačar, we wait for Remco to come to the line and just listen to the welcome he is getting. This is phenomenal. Chapeau, Remco Evenepoel, what a brave ride on his debut. He finishes on the podium, and what a podium it is. Favourites before the day, Tadej Pogačar, Mathieu van der Poel, Remco Evenepoel and Wout van Aert, and guess who's coming home next? Wout van Aert struggled on this day, found himself out of position on a number of occasions, had to wrestle his way back in, but ultimately there was no way to unpick the lock that this man has indeed set on cycling. Has he thrown away the key? Can anyone unpick him? It's a massive question, and there'll be plenty out there. We hope one day to find the answer. Wout van Aert brings it in. The Hoordings being beaten again. Belgium finishing 3rd and 4th on the day. And a brave Mats Pedersen out there in the distance is going to come home for an amazing top 5 after battling back against illness and injury. 5 great riders, every single one of them deserve our thanks, but our respect and our homage goes, of course, to none other than Teddy Bucati.